So, welcome to the second day of the Global FactChecking conference. I hope you had a blast yesterday, both during the conference and after the conference. I heard many of you have been exploring Cape Town. I'm so jealous about it. So, looking forward to hear the recommendations after the conference. Today we will be starting our conference with a panel that I was also really looking forward to have. And since we have Mark moderating this panel, which his name has been mentioned a couple of times yesterday. So we have a missing panelist today, but I'm gonna ask Mark to tell about why we will be missing Thai's input today and how we can have the discussion and see how this community is doing a great job in innovation and fact-checking. So thanks so much for being on time here and enjoy the discussion.
Great. Well, good morning, everybody. Is this on? No, it's not. You have to turn it on. Oh, I have to turn it on. Technology is a marvelous thing. Can you hear me now? Yes, you can. Hi. Good morning, everybody. So we are gathered up here to talk to you about the future of misinformation. We're very excited because it seems that misinformation has a bright future, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and so we're trying to figure out what we can do about it. This is an awesome panel. I don't have a whole lot of work to do, and I'm going to introduce folks in reverse order of how we're going to present this morning. We're going to finish with Mevan from Full Fact, who most of us know, and Gülin from TEIT is going to be our second speaker, and she's going to talk about a project that I had a really tiny little bitty part in that was really fun, and Hannah, who's a TruthBuzz fellow from the International Center for Journalists, is going to open up the discussion a little bit about what you were working on in the Nigerian election. Missing up here this morning is Nalon from AS Fatos, who's unfortunately ill. So if you get a chance to send her a get well tweet or WhatsApp message or something, that would be great. But we really miss having her today, but we're going to try to channel some of her thinking and gather, and I might turn to some of you in the room to help fill in some of the blanks of topics that she was going to talk about. So without much further ado and to save time, Hannah, you're up first.
Okay.
Let's get to, yep, that'd be great.
Morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, so this is my first time attending the Global Fact, so I expect you to be nice to me, so please. Okay, so I'm going to talk about my work as a TruthBuzz Fellow. You know, the TruthBuzz Fellowship is organized by the International Center for Journalists. And you have TruthBuzz Fellows in like the biggest democracies in the world. Like you have fellows from the US, from Indonesia, Brazil, and India. So basically we work with media partners. Like I've been working with media partners in Nigeria, that is FactChecking and Daily Trust. And the core of my work has been to make fact-checking, go viral, because that is the mission of the fellowship. So I'll just share some of the strategies that we have been using. And I think that this is peculiar to newsrooms like the African context and from newsroom with little resources. Okay, so what I have been doing is basically driven by the demographic, because in Nigeria and like you have in other countries in Africa, you have a growing youth population, and these people access news and information from their mobile phone. So trying to make fact-checking go viral, like we sort of develop a strategy that sort of appeal to young people. Like I said, Nigeria has 26 million active Facebook users, and about 25 million of them access the platform on their phones. So that means whatever fact check report will be publishing should be something that is appealing, that people can easily access on their phone. So what has been the focus area of my work? Like producing social media videos using Lumen 5. How many of us know about Lumen 5? Like, it's quite easy, you know, like it's a tool online. You can make videos in minutes with AI, and it's quite easy to use. And also we have the media literacy aspect, creating public service videos in Pidgin and designing creatives in Pidgin English. Pidgin English is actually like a broken form of the English language, and it's something that's that is widely spoken across the various bases in Nigeria. So that way you can get fact-checking to reach not just those who are educated, but those who are also not educated. And the third one is designing visually appealing social media cards, which give a brief summary of our report. And this is because usually, it's an era where young people and even older people access information on their phones. So whatever you're doing has to be visually appealing, and people usually don't have time to read and sit through long text. So I have to rush through this. Okay, so this is an example of one of the videos we made with Lumen 5, and this was during the Nigerian election, where you have someone sharing false information about how you can vote. So we did this video, push it out on our social media panels, and it has over 60,000 views, which is a lot for a newsroom that is just growing. Okay, so, and the Lumen 5 advantage, and the reason why I would recommend it for people who are fact checkers, if you're looking to get your audience to read your fact check through videos, because just articles can be turned into videos in a few minutes, and you can get your videos in standard formats, and it's better because not many people these days want to read. They always want to get hooked on videos. Okay, this is an example of some of the social media cards we do. The essence of using social media cards is for people who usually will not read long text. So you put this there, you put like the hooks, then the verdict. So this way, when someone just reads through this, they have an idea of the information you are trying to debunk. And this really works because when we upload this on our social media panels, we have reactions from people talking about it and people liking it. Okay, so a spotlight on previous publications. Because you have a lot of people, accessing their information and publication on social media, we also tend to use our social media card to do what you call like a flashback. So today we have a sort of throwback Thursday, and we just publish some of our previous reports, put them with the card, and just get more people to access them. Okay, so the other time I mentioned the Pidgin PSs, and Pidgin, is that my time? Okay, so the Pidgin is, like I said, it's the broken English. When the Europeans came into Nigeria during colonialism, that was the sort of communication. So we've had videos on how to fact check online information, and we've had videos on how you can use your phone to check if an image is true. That is like doing a Google reverse search. Like you can see, use your phone, check whether that's information not true, which simply means use your phone to check if that photo is true. Or the other ones, which say 7 ways you fit check online information, which simply means 7 ways you can check online information. And that is for folks who don't really understand English, because the literacy level in Nigeria is like 55% or so, and you have other people who can only communicate in other languages, so that way you don't leave them out. Okay, so recently with Africa Check, using some of those strategies, the videos and the social media cards, we ran like a campaign, like an ad campaign to increase traffic to the website. And these are the results that we got using some of those things, the impressions, 12.8 million, post engagement, website click, and that sort of surpassed the expectations. And even now, after the campaign has ended, the number of visitors to the page has sort of doubled. Okay, so I'm just trying to show you some of our, during the period of the campaign, some of our top 3 most performing post on Facebook. As you can see, the video, so that shows the power of video, when you're thinking of making information go viral or making fact check go viral. And you can see the images through which we introduce guides to verify images. And also this third image shows that creative is in Hausa language. It really shows the ability, like the potential in publishing fact check in local languages so that more people have the information. Okay, and the same on Instagram, you know, the image, the creative, and the video. So, a call to action. So just like to tell you that, especially in the African setting, you know, getting people to view or interact with your story is now part of the storytelling process. So to make facts go viral, we need to engage our audience. And the ways we can do that is going on social media and using videos and social media cards. So that's all. Thank you.
While Gülin's getting set up with her slides, I just wanted to ask, so, you know, there are many fact checkers in this room who've been at it for as long as a decade, which in internet terms is about, I don't know, 700 years. And, you know, who have designs and pages that are really set up for web classic, desktop, laptop presentations. When you think about creating a mobile-first experience, what are the biggest mistakes you see people making in terms of making content accessible for a mobile audience?
I think basically the biggest mistake would be, you know, when you produce content that are not tailored towards the mobile format. Like you are doing video, you are doing card, there is a format that goes on mobile, you know, there's a format that goes on Twitter, on Facebook. So whatever you're doing and you're trying to get people on their phone, it has to be tailored towards that content. And it has to be very brief because the attention span is so short. So it has to be very brief so that people can get the information at a go.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Gülin.
Hello. Okay. So I just want to show a video what we done actually. But while you are watching a video, I just talk about what we are doing. So yeah, so this is our design sprint. And I try to briefly explain what we done in Turkey about to find the solutions on misinformation problem. And we designed to design sprint in Istanbul and Ankara, and we want to find innovative solutions about misinformation. Actually, 160 people applied, and we choose 60 of them, and we make design sprint. And since we established state, actually we try to develop some tools, some technological tools. For example, one of them is our software, Dubito, and it's make our editorial process is really easy, and we can add our links, we can archive these links, and we can collect our reports, and we see the metrics by this software. And actually, we even have an extension for just our team, and we can easily add the links on our tools. And we also have archive tool like archivist state.link. But the problem is when we were doing these technological tools, we face a really big problem. We couldn't find a dedicated technical people in behind us, in between us. So it's really hard to sustain developing technological tools or new solutions in misinformation areas. So after all these experiences, we figure out that the key point is the community. We didn't have any community like I know, entrepreneurs, technological peoples, and maybe different area from like sociology, maybe political science. And we want to get these people together with just one event. We gave so much energy to do this because you have to choose people, you have to I know, find the perfect mentor for your program. But basically we know that we really need a powerful community to fight against misinformation. So design sprint methods is Google's method for like hackathon, but it's the biggest difference from the hackathon is you can define the problem area for people, and we choose the misinformation problem for people who really want to fight against this. So we get these people together. Maybe you can see some of them. And our main objective as doing this is creating an environment for developing innovative solutions, and the second one is creating a multidisciplinary community around false information and around hate, actually. So the basic, I know how can positive effect of this kind of design sprint is you can reach the lead users. So we make the lead users one of the part of the solution, actually. These lead users is the most important part of Factory because they knew the problem, they use social media effectively, and they want to fight against this problem. And we give them a chance to combine their skills with their, I know, the problem itself. So also using the lead users to find a solution is really, this design sprint method is really supporting the grassroots innovation. So why is important to grassroots innovation? Because it's innovative tools and maybe the process of the innovation, it's kind of created at the bottom of the pyramid. So you have to start at the bottom, and maybe you can reach what you want with them. So it's really important. And another terminology for us, for our Factory program, is the community of the practice. So people have some problems about the misinformation, and they face these problems every day. And this is really important to give a chance to interact interact regularly with the solution together with the people who have same problems. So I can maybe mention about, I really want to mention about you, because it's really important to choose a perfect mentor for these kind of, for this kind of design sprint. Mark was one of the mentors in our Ankara design sprint, and the other one is Valentin Penchev. Is actually from Indiana University, and the team who developed the tools like Hoxie, Botometer. So this is really important, and this is show how we can collaborate fighting with misinformation, and it's really important for the applicants, actually. The inspiring talks of Mark and Valentin, of course, really help to us to, to continue this with this enthusiasm. So it's really important for us. And our motto after all the events is everybody can learn from each other. I'm sure Mark maybe say something about this, because it's really great to see these people have never, write any articles about misinformation, and maybe it's just read few articles from TEIT, but have idea about how can they fight misinformation. And I learned so much things from these people, and it's really important to learn from in multidisciplinary groups and different perspectives. It's really helpful for them. And at the final event, 7 of 10 group, I guess. 7 of 10 group. I checked with the Atakan. So 7 of 10 group present their projects. Maybe not all projects become the real projects at the end, But it's important to collect these kind of people together and create some community. And it's really important to, another thing is, actually in the future, we have a plan for media, incubation program for media. So this is really first step for us to create such a program. It's actually experimental for us also to create this design sprint and to learn something from there. So some of the final projects about creating maybe extensions, developing bots, fighting against the false video and photographs. We have a new revenue model for fact checkers, but as I really want to say again, the important thing is the community, and it's really important to continue working with them, and it's creating such a community, I guess. Yeah, thank you.
Maybe while Mevan's getting set up her presentation, I guess I should turn this back on. I'll just leave that on. Thank you. It was a very inspiring event. This amazing group of designers, techies, social entrepreneurs that you and Atakan and the facilitators you were working with gathered in Ankara for the session that I was at. You mentioned some of the kinds of projects that they came up with in this two-day process. I wonder if you might say, one of the common themes among the various proposals that I heard were about socialization, very much along the lines of what Hannah was talking about, and how to use, whether it was games or social media, to get people involved in the sharing process. And did you learn anything from those discussions or come up with any new ideas from that specifically?
Yeah, actually, I know. For example, one of the group choose the way for educate the people, the youngs, want to just use the game as a hook to just get younger generation to website, and then they want to teach them with this game. For example, it's really inspiring because it's really good hook for the youngs. And another the game is about, it's kind of, it's kind of lotto, and you give money and lottery, yes. You give, and you have to give correct answer, and then you earn some points and to maybe some awards at the end. So it's really popular in Turkey. So using this method for I know fighting against misinformation is really good way, but one of the projects actually we applied to the Fact Forward is actually make fact checkers process easy, and it's really important because AI cannot solve everything for fact checkers, so we have to find maybe intermediate solutions for fact checkers also, and this is really a good one.
Totally agree. Mevan.
Hello. Is this working?
Not quite yet.
No? This is working now. Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Mevan. I'm from Full Fact. I'm the head of automated fact checking at Full Fact, which is, I think, the only title of its kind. But there's a lot to talk to you about today. So whereas in the past I might have gone a bit deeper into one topic, what I'm going to try to do in 7 minutes is try to take you through the wide range of solutions that are available to the misinformation problem and some of the work that's been done in that area. But before I do that, I think it's really important that we talk about the fact-checking process. What does the fact-checking process actually look like if we break it down? At the beginning of each day, we all do some kind of monitoring. We all monitor the news, the media, we're looking at TV, YouTube, social media, and we're trying to look at what public debate actually is. So the first stage is monitoring. Second stage is spotting claims. So we're trying to actually extract the claims that are checkable from the articles that we see or from the sentences that we hear. And when you spot claims, there are kind of two types of claims that you can really spot. Ones that you've checked before and ones that you haven't. It's very simple. After that, it's very simple. What happens next is we do checking. And either that checking is getting a fact check that we already have, or getting primary data that we know exactly where to go for, or it's creating an entirely new fact check. And obviously, these two branches have a lot of different levels of human effort behind them. One is a database query, the other one is maybe months and months of work. And then finally, we at FullFact think that the last step is action. It's not enough to just check something. You also have to go out and get it corrected or change behavior, try and stop the spread in some way, do press releases, capture case studies. And so it's about intervening after you have that check in the first place. So very loosely, this is fact-checking in a nutshell. And when you're starting to think about technical solutions to the fact-checking problem, I think it's sometimes helpful to think in these terms. Because when you break this down, it's not necessarily easy, for example, to create a new fact check in a human way, but it's certainly in a machine way, sorry. But it is very easy to spot an old claim and to bring up that fact check in real time. So we're trying to look for solvable problems in a very complex area. So for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to talk about some of the problems that I think as fact checkers we have. So fact checkers, one of the problems is each day we want to make sure that we're checking the most important claim. And right now, that's really hard because we don't monitor everything. We can't extract everything. We have kind of no idea in some ways if we're checking the right things. It's a judgment call that we're making in each of our countries. And I think we're making good judgments, but it would be nice to have some evidence to that effect. So I can go very deep into the subject, but I don't think we have the time. But what I would like to tell you is that there is already some really good tools available that help do this. Checkiado spoke about CheckierBot yesterday, and there's also ClaimBuster in America that does claim extraction. So you give them a lot of sentences, and it tells you what are the checkable claims in this stream. And also, very recently, thanks to the Google AI Impact Challenge, Africa Check, Checkiado, and FullFact are working together to build a new type of claim spotting tool that is hopefully coming to you all soon in the next few months. So what this tool will aim to do is monitor a wide range of media in lots of different countries, extract the claims that are being made using machine learning, and then allow fact checkers to decide to slice and dice that data and be able to choose what are the most important things to be checking that day. So for example, you could query it and say, what are the claims made by Theresa May in the last hour on health? And it gives you all of them in a queue. I don't think it will solve the problem entirely, but I think it will at least go a long way to helping us widen the amount of monitoring that we can do and making smarter choices each day. Also, one of the problems that we have is we want to be able to spot and check repeated claims immediately. We have these amazing databases of fact checks. We have all the claims that we've checked before. It's relatively easy, actually, to spot things repeated. But at the moment, that's a lot of infrastructure that we don't necessarily have. The people who do have some of that infrastructure is Checkiado again, and also Reporters Lab Squash, which I've made a random logo for because you didn't have one. Do you like it? I think you can keep it. So these are tools that take sentences and look at the database of fact checks that exist and says, here is something that you've checked before, here is a claim in real time with the fact check right next to it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's always true, like 100%, but more often than not, it's okay. And that claim matching is going to get better and better over time, hopefully. This is what FullFact looks like. We generate a transcript in real time using speech to text. So we get TV streaming, and we can do that in about 8 different languages. And then when there is a match, the sentence is underlined, and on the other side it says, this is an exact claim match. Here is the claim that you checked in the past, and here is a link to that fact check. So our fact checkers use that during live fact checking of Prime Minister's questions and parliamentary debates and whatnot. Running out of time. So the next thing that we want to be able to do, it's not enough to just check claims that we have seen before. We want to be able to check new claims in real time as well. That's like the holy grail, right? You have a sentence and then you can check it in real time. As far as I know, I think we're the people who have done most work on this in terms of statistics. And I'm going to show you a demo of that in a minute. But the people who I'm saying are doing most work on this, it's not in any way like indicative of the broad range of people. So if you do know more people working in this area, please come and tell me about them because I really want to know. So when I say checking claims in real time, I mean taking someone directly to the primary source and generating a graph of the data from the official source, the national statistics body in the UK. So so for example, you might be in a live interview situation and you could do something like this. Unemployment has fallen by 8% since 2010. Yay! So it's parsed out the sentence, and you can see at the side it says, this is the topic, you're talking about unemployment, the trend is decrease. The geography, it's assuming you're talking about is the UK. It's saying when it's working from and until, the assumption is 2010 to 2019. It gives you a verdict, which we're still working on. And also it says this is the source that we're using, this is the latest release, and this is when the next release is. This is only really possible because the Office for National Statistics in the UK, I'm out of time, guys, but I've still got lots of slides.
Keep going.
Okay. This is only possible because the Office for National Statistics in the UK has worked really hard on getting their data in a format that we can access in real time. And we've been a part of those conversations as well. And as part of the Google AI Impact Challenge, we're hoping to have more of those conversations with statisticians around the world. And to start opening up some of that data in a way that means that we can all start doing this, not just the countries that have the luxury of statistical data in an API. Okay, how do I get back? Okay, got it. Bear with me. Okay. One of the other things I think we need to start thinking about and talking about is understanding epidemiology. And what I mean by that is understanding the spread. Who is saying something? Where is it spreading? Can we actually be slightly more careful about who we target and where we target it to make sure that it doesn't reach out to new communities? I haven't seen a whole ton of work in this area. The work that I have seen is predominantly about social networks, and actually I think Martin does some really great work with Trendalizer, which you should definitely talk to him about. And there are people like Hoaxy that start to do that on social networks as well. But really one of the biggest problems there is that it doesn't cover the entirety of the internet. It doesn't cover, in the UK, people still mostly get their news from TV. And actually that's a really big part of the puzzle that we don't have access to. So we have to start thinking beyond social media. Where are people actually getting their news and their data and their information? And it's not just social. It is a lot of other places. At Full Fact, we have a tool called Trends that basically monitors online newspapers, parliament, and social media, and it looks for claims repeated over time. And so we get a sense of where are things being repeated, when is there a spike, and this updates itself hourly at the moment. Hourly's enough. And it seems to do a decent job of telling our policy and impact officer, who then gets corrections about that stuff. So she gets an email when someone repeats something, and then her job is then to actually get a correction, actually to get the behavior change. One of the questions I have that I'd like to really answer in the next few years is, can we fingerprint the path that bad information takes through networks? So forget checking. Like if there is a behavior of bad information that travels through certain communities, can we actually use that kind of spread through those communities as a way of just signaling that this is maybe bad information and needs checking? I don't know, but it's a question I have and I thought was interesting. Finally, I think understanding the scale of problems is really, really important. I've asked a lot of people around the world whether they understand the scale of problems in misinformation, and there's some academic research done into this, but I would say that none of it can really tell you what the bounds are, and none of it's really enough to be practically useful right now. And some of the work that we are doing is about claim detection. So it's about separating out claims from other sentences, and what I really hope in the future that claim detection can help us do is something like this. Here are all the sentences in the world. I want to be able to extract all of the claims made in the world, and all of a sudden I'm dealing with 30% of all the sentences and not 100%, which is great. Then can we start to break down claims even further? Can we start to extract the statistical claims in a machine learning way? Can we begin to extract the ones about causation or correlation, like the tetanus vaccine causes infertility? Are there legal claims that we could separate out, or other types of claims? And if we get to that point, can we break it down further by saying, here are the statistical claims about health that are the most repeated, here are the statistical claims about the economy, and can we use that to actually target our fact-checking in a more effective and smart way to actually hit on the most repeated claims that we see? This is a research problem right now that we're trying to deal with, and I hope to have some answers in the next few years, but we're not there yet. I'm almost finished, I promise. Finally, image and video verification is hugely important, and we've not really touched upon it a lot, but here are some tools that I really rate. Invid and WeVerify are actually combining these days to become their own little thing. And TruthPick and Serelay don't actually help you verify unless you're using the technology at the point of capture, but I think they're really interesting answers to misinformation problems. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much. Sorry I went over.
Thank you so much, Mevan. So I began this by mentioning that Nalon was going to be here, and in the spirit of the spotting challenge that Mevan was talking about, one of the places that it's very difficult to spot claims and the spread of misinformation and do that epidemiological work you were describing is in WhatsApp, Telegram, other sort of closed messaging systems where we know a lot of information is spreading. One thing we were going to ask Ty to talk about, and Ty asked me to convey to you that she has the slides and information she was going to present, so if you were very interested in what she's been doing in Brazil and want to know more about that, she's going to try to distribute that to us since she couldn't be here this morning. But I wanted to ask Chris from IFCN about her experience during the Brazil election and some really innovative work that was being done in Brazil about how to penetrate that WhatsApp barrier and how to get into the discussions that are happening in that world. And so if you're able to talk about some of what the university that you all worked with was able to do, you can stand up or wherever you feel comfortable. But thank you for letting me put you on the spot. Is that on?
Is this on? Hello? Yeah? No? No? Yep. Now? Yeah. Hey, good morning. And I just wanted to add something. Ty's work on automation is a blast. She's really doing a wonderful job. And it's very sad that she's not here. She's doing a wonderful work in getting quotes on Twitter, and we really need to have time to hear her. Just spend some time reading whatever she's probably gonna send through the listserv or Slack, and just read that. She's doing a really wonderful work. Well, what Mark is talking about, and let's see if I can help with that. We had this WhatsApp problem, and I think some of you have also the same situation, is what do we fact check, and how do we know what is trending on WhatsApp, right? And so in Brazil, we had election last year, and in university in Minas Gerais, which is one of the states, they developed a WhatsApp monitor, which is a pretty cool system. What they did is they got some mobile phones, some SIM cards, and they opened accounts, and they somehow, I can't explain technically because I'm not an IT person, I'm sorry for that, they managed to get in some WhatsApp public groups. And actually they got in 250 political open chat groups. and they put, I suppose, bots to read whatever was being said in those groups. So in that moment, it was just a kind of getting all those things together, and suddenly they realized they had over 85,000 contents, and they wanted us from Lupa to fact check. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not possible. And so they offered us all that content, and they have this very cool system. Somehow I can upload if that's possible, or maybe we can tweet that later so you can see how it looks like, the monitor. You can see...
Daniel's on it, by the way.
Yeah, I can send you right now. You can see all the texts, but you don't know who it's coming from and to who it's being sent to. And you can see all the texts. You see all the audios. You can hear the audios. You can see the photos, and you can see the videos that are being sent on these WhatsApp public groups. And of course, since you have all that content, you can fact check that. And you can also see how many groups share that content and how many people were in those groups. So you somehow have a sense of is that trending or not. Of course, we only worked with 250 groups. That's pretty small. In Brazil, we have 127 million active users in Facebook, and we only observed about 18,000 people. That is about it. I mean, it's not a big group. It was just like a tiny group of Brazilians. But just to give you a sense of what we got out of that observation, we decided that during the elections, we were going to focus on images, because in Brazil we had like this huge problem with image sharing. And we overlooked about 50 images, and only 4 of them were totally true. We had like a big problem with images, and we fact-checked them. So yeah, having 8% of images totally true is a very bad rate of veracity in the WhatsApp system. And yeah, we're pretty happy these guys from the university had a chance to develop that. I'm not sure if I was clear enough.
That was terrific. Yeah, I mean, it was just remarkable to me to see this idea of using the public groups essentially as a proxy to figure out what was spreading in the private groups. And by seeing something that was spreading virally in an epidemiological way in those groups, sort of gave you a hint of what was probably happening in those other channels that you had no sight line into. And so
yeah, and just to give, just going beyond, I just want to make a remark that I really miss WhatsApp not being here, because this is an important discussion, and it's going to happen not maybe in the US, you guys don't use WhatsApp as much as elsewhere in the world, but yeah, automation and all this work that you girls are doing, it's amazing, but we really need to discuss how we're going to see what is being said on WhatsApp, and how are we going to face false news in WhatsApp? What are the tools for that? Yeah, and there's this university with no money at all, trying to figure out how to spot false news there.
Yep, and Daniel wrote several very good articles about this project for the Pointer website from IFCN. I think he's already posted one of them up on the hashtag on Twitter, and so that's worth taking a look at. Also, Ty, again, who's not here, wrote one of the year-end trends and fact-checking articles for Pointer and IFCN, and that also will give you some sense of some of the things that she would have been talking about if she was here with us. Well, she's here with us in spirit today, so hopefully she'll show up later in the day if she can. WhatsApp, part of some big company I've heard of that has something to do with social media. In a lot of our past Global Fact Summits, we spent a lot of time whining, complaining, raising concerns, challenging the big search engine, social media outlets out there. I'm curious, the engagement level has changed, and the dynamic feels like it has changed a lot over the past couple of years, in part because of the concerns that this group has raised, and also just the concerns that honestly those organizations sort of have a better grasp of than it seemed like they did a couple of years ago. I'm curious from your points of view, how do you think those channels have picked up their game and improved their act? Since we've often talked about the other side of that, but also where do they still have work to do? Where are they not helping us with this misinformation problem? I don't know. Which of you would like to start with that?
Well, do you guys use WhatsApp?
Yeah,
I don't, so.
I think in Nigeria, like it's common, WhatsApp is like one of the most popular closed messaging apps. And like it's happened in India during the last election in Nigeria, you have, WhatsApp was like a contributing factor to the spread of misinformation. And now you have WhatsApp sponsoring research, academic research, and sometimes putting out messages on radios about the need for people to be careful before they share content and the rest. But there's still a lot more to be done, especially from the big technology giants in terms of like the projects she presented in Brazil about using automation. You don't have many fact-checking organizations in Nigeria doing that. So if we could get help in that aspect from WhatsApp, to use automation to sort of fight the spread of misinformation, and also maybe get some technological help that helps fact checker to be able to get access to some, it's a closed messaging hub, to be able to get access to like the origin of some of the misinformation. I think that will help. So we need to see more commitment, especially on the African continent, from WhatsApp itself. I'm not sure I get it.
Maybe I can add something. The misinformation in WhatsApp is really, and closed networks actually, is really common in Turkey also, like in Brazil. Actually, the last report of the Reuters, we saw that in the WhatsApp groups and the Facebook closed groups, Turkish people share mostly news and political contents. So actually, we try to intervene the WhatsApp via WhatsApp stickers. We created some stickers, some fancy things to just, give some idea to people what is actually fact-checking. And we have some English version. You can just ask us and we can send you. And this is, we said, you debunked, what is your source, and check the source as something like these. So I think these kind of solutions is yes, I said it's kind of fancy and kind of a different way to reach people and give some idea about this information might be wrong, might be false. So yeah, this is our strategy to intervene in this, and it's, you can use these stickers in Instagram also. So maybe you can use their tools for ourselves, maybe just reverse their skills to, being close, maybe for our own side.
I do think one of the questions with WhatsApp is how far do you basically invade people's privacy? And if we're asking for details about spreads, then that's very, very hard to do in a closed messaging app that's encrypted end-to-end. But there are definitely things that could be done to help fact checkers. Certainly in terms of getting 85,000 requests in, there must be a better way of actually making that as painless as possible to get that many requests in, understand which are the ones that are repeated, and actually create some sort of like helpful queue. And I know there's been some work around that, but I think there could be more done to actually improve that. So I think that's probably one of the pain points that exists. But I also do think it's very important that we safeguard people's privacy in closed places. And that tension is never going to go away as people use more and more closed messaging apps. That's why I think the stickers are actually really great, because it's about empowering an individual, or the bots that are on WhatsApp, on Telegram are really, really great, because it allows the individual to say, I've seen this piece of misinformation, is there something? And it's an interaction just between them and the bot. It's not about opening up that whole ecosystem. It's about empowering that one person with a fun way of saying, is that really true? Yeah.
Well, and then the refrain that we've had for for years on this, of course, is more access to data, more access to tools to allow us to do research on what's happening on all of these different platforms is another common concern shared in this room. But so hopefully that's helpful to any of the platform folks here in terms of what the mood of the room is here. We want to, we don't have a whole lot of time left, but what other misinformation concerns do you have? And we've got 3 of the smartest people in the room to help us figure out how to solve them real quick. Big problem, little time. We've got someone right back here.
Yes, hello. My name is Walid Asaka from Södertörn University in Sweden. We're also involved in the area of fact-checking and research-oriented fact-checking. And one of the dilemmas we find is ethical concerns when we come to issues that surround group discussions, because occasionally you'd like to get this information. You want to use it for research. You want to understand patterns and see how fake information, disinformation gets spread. But then you consider the consequences of action if some of the information you obtain is actually unethical in terms of research. So how do you deal with these aspects?
You've thought a lot about the ethics of some of this.
Maybe to a fault, yeah. So I think it depends wholly on the context and exactly what kind of research and how you've got it and what you're trying to solve. And I think it's very, very bespoke to each situation. So I think if you could share a little bit more, it could help. But I really do think more broadly that it's just very important that when we're working in the space, if we're building tools, especially, that we safeguard free speech in this area, especially if we're talking about answers at scale. But I think when it comes to research, you could probably afford to not be a lot more cavalier, but a little bit more cavalier. But still like working within ethical frameworks, especially if you're touching on machine learning. There are some really, really great ethical frameworks recently. Actually, Google has a really fantastic one about fairness in AI that I really recommend. Yeah, but if you want to talk about the specifics of the situation, I'm very happy to help afterwards.
Are there ethical challenges that have come up in your work in Nigeria and Turkey that have left you perplexed in how to deal with the line between people's private communications and their use of those communications to spread misinformation?
Yeah, of course, like I said on WhatsApp, assessing like the source or the origin of misinformation, and there is a limit to how you can get into people's phone and trace the source of the misinformation. So we always have that ethical challenge, like what is the limits that you can go to? And I think that sort of limits the, should I say, the work that some of the fact checkers are doing, because you have to think of the ethical aspect. Does it infringe on privacy? How far can you go? But I think sometimes if it's something that you need to do in public interest, especially when it comes to research, I think there can be some exceptions to some rules.
Cool. All right. Who else is out there who would like to raise a consideration for our colleagues up here? Right here. Oh. I'm sorry, it was right over here. So.
My question is to Mark Stencel. Do you think automation and artificial intelligence will lead fact-checking in future?
Say again one more time.
Do you think the artificial intelligence and automation fact-checking will lead in future, and we don't need any human faculty, something like that?
Well, my personal opinion is that the humans still have a very important role to play in the process for the time being. I would probably defer to some of my colleagues like Chris Guess and other people who are working on our AI-related fact-checking projects, which, as Mevan mentioned, it's interesting. A bunch of us are working on similar places where we think automation can accelerate aspects of the fact-checking process either on the reporting side of the equation or on the dissemination side of the equation. And but a related question I have for you on this, since you're also working on these issues, is we're all working on very similar problems, but the language challenges to deploy these across, there's 60 different countries represented here, many, many languages represented here as well. And how do we scale that kind of technology to solve these problems when some of the solutions are just going to have to be remade from scratch, it seems, right?
I think it's a really, really important question, and it's one that we're going to be grappling with a lot. And actually, it's one that you mentioned in your talk earlier about language models, only working in specific languages. It's a big challenge for the future, but luckily, there are really huge organizations trying to build language models because there's huge commercial value in doing that. So there are certainly people at the big tech companies who are trying to extend their transcription services to many other languages. That takes time, that takes a certain amount of data, and over time that will improve. I don't think that's anything that any of us can really solve because it's a huge problem. Frankly, we don't have the resources. But I think one of the things that we can do is certainly build things with that in mind, that it needs to be put into multiple different languages. Can we actually build things in such a way that means that we actually don't necessarily need to focus on a language model as the core component? Are there easier, simpler things that we can do ahead of time that might mean it's accessible in every language? And also, if we are doing that, are there ways that we can use those tools to capture some of the data that actually might improve those language models in the long run? I don't know if we can, but I think it's an important question to be asking. If we're all using tools and if we're all monitoring all this media, and we're all transcribing things, that's kind of the data that everybody needs to be able to build into new languages. Is there some way of capturing that in a more meaningful way? I don't know.
That's perfect. Anything either of you would like to add to that?
I think I would just like to add, she mentioned something about language model, and I think it's one still better for the developed world. Then when you come to Nigeria, you come to Africa where you have so many languages, and when people build tools, tools for transcription and rest, they are not even thinking about us. So I think that is something that we need to look at. Even as we continue to build language models, we should also look at the other part of the world, especially with languages where you have a lot of speakers. So we should put that into consideration as well. It's not just about the so-called major languages, but there are some other languages in other part of the world too that we should think of when building these models.
And in the factory process in Ankara and Istanbul, there were a lot of computer scientists who came and participated in that, people that you wouldn't normally have access to in your newsroom. Do you think that you'll be able to build off of some of these projects?
Actually, one of the projects is about the natural language process, and want to build some tools for fact checkers and to help them to, to define maybe the evidences, maybe claims. But the problem is, actually, yesterday we published an article about the candidates for elections, and there are claims about these candidates say these words, for example, 20 times, and the other one say just one time. So they try to claim this candidate is super and the other is don't care the public and else. For just 1 hour live video, we just spent 2 days because it's really hard to transfer to speech to text. It's really bad for Turkish, so it's just manually control and spell check for just one article. So it's really, we have to have a long way to just go there, but it's really important. Programs like Factory, like this design sprint, is to give people idea what we need, and maybe they can help us to just succeed this maybe more easily, yeah.
Well, we have run over by a couple minutes here, and I want to make room for Clara before Libars throws us off the stage. One thing I would like to mention, particularly since we had a question from Bangladesh, is there are some of you here who have fact-checking operations that are not on the Duke Reporters Lab map of fact-checking projects that we track sort of in parallel to IFCN's certification process, while IFCN is looking for the organizations that are doing the best and sort of gold standard work in fact-checking. We're trying to track outlets. Often many fact-checking operations have multiple outlets, and some do interesting work. So if you are here and you have a fact-checking project that is not on our map, let me know, because I think by the end of the day, we could go from 189 fact-checkers to 200, which would be a fun thing to do while we're here. So I'll call this the 200 Fact-Checker Challenge. Stop by and track me down during one of the breaks. During those breaks, talk to these three very smart people about all these ideas that have come up, and let's figure out how we can make more happen. And let's please thank this excellent panel. And Hannah, did you want to make one point here?
Yes, I just want to say that later the TruthBuzz Fellow will be having a workshop, on expanding the audience for fact-checking. So you can just join us. We'll be having practical sessions from our wonderful fellows from the US and from Indonesia. So.
And that US fact-checker, the TruthBuzz Fellow, he happens to be a Duke graduate, doesn't he?
Yes, Matt.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. Huh. All right. Thank you all very much.